Hi there, everyone, and welcome to the Tammy Tuckey Show. My name is Tammy Tuckey, and it's good to see you. So, today I can't wait to welcome this guest because she's been on the show before. We've known each other for quite some time, I think since 2016 now. So, I'm really excited to bring her because she has her new book. She's now an author. So, let's welcome Katherine Lench Meyering to the show. Hi, Katherine.
Hi, Tammy. Nice
I'm
to
so
see
glad
you.
you're back.
Thank you. Good to be seen.
Yes, we're now on camera as opposed to last time we were just audio only. So this is nice that people get to see you, and I think many people know you in the Disney community as the singing voice behind the bride at Phantom Manor at Disneyland Paris. That's what we were kind of talking a little bit about off air. So that's your claim to fame in the Disney universe. So I think we talked in a good deal about that the last time you were on the show, but I thought why not you tell a little bit more about that story, like how you got that particular role, because you've been a performer for many years now. So,
That's true. I was working at Walt Disney Imagineering, and I was a secretary, and my good friend Jeff Burke, and also my friend Pam Dahl, I think, and maybe Gabrielle Reynolds, probably Gabrielle Reynolds. They all called and said, come and audition. And I learned the music. I auditioned against everyone in the world, inside and outside of Disney, and they chose me to be the voice of the Phantom Bride.
and you got to, how long did it take to record that session in particular?
We did it
I'm
in
just
one
curious.
day's time. One day's time. I learned
One
it.
day's time.
I learned it maybe over the span of a couple of weeks, and we recorded it in one day.
Wow, that's amazing. So you was learning it in the span of a few weeks and one day to record. I think like I would be extremely nervous just to make sure I
I
was
was.
I was
I was.
on par with.
Hmm.
So, are you somebody who can read music or?
I read with my ears. I can read music, but I'm not an expert sight reader. But I have been known to listen to a melody and then almost know it instantly.
I
I'm
know
sure
it.
like you. Like you.
That's the only way I can learn things. I feel so bad, but I'm like, I can't read music at all. And anybody who can, I'm like, more power to you because to me, it's like a different language. Basically, it's its own language of reading. So that's
Yeah.
why I'm glad they gave you at least time to learn it, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I had to, and by rote, but again, I have a good ear, as do you. So it's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I love it because some of your posts, you get to perform at other senior living communities. And I love that because that's kind of where my background is from. When I'm not doing this, I get to work in senior living and healthcare. So when did you start getting to perform with for those who are in, these communities?
About 10 years ago, my father ended up in a place called Sunrise at Sterling Canyon here in Santa Clarita, California. And we had moved him in, and my husband said, you've got to meet this woman who's playing the piano. So he came over to her after she was finishing playing for an hour. She's this wonderful woman named Ruth Allen, and she played in London at the Savoy Hotel. An absolute musical genius who also doesn't read music. She plays by ear and she's magnificent. Anyway, husband Ralph takes me up to meet this woman or says to her, I think without me, oh, you've got to meet my wife. You're just going to love her. And I think Ruth went, yeah, yeah, yeah. She's a singer. Yeah, yeah, I'm sure she is. And then we did meet. I sang with her. The first song we sang ever was Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And that was, say, 10
Oh,
years ago over. And she's been my surrogate mother. She's just magnificent. And her daughters, it's just a love affair. And we sing once a week, whether we need it or not. So that's 10 years of it.
well, I
10
love
years
when you
of
do the post because it's nice to watch you guys perform, and it brings you such joy because a lot of people, I think music is the key to many things and healing and just getting to know other people. You go to concerts and you get to meet people who like the same thing you do, and just appreciate that music, and then you get to share your talent with others and they love it too. So I that's one thing I take joy in when I see you post on Facebook. I'm like, there she goes.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Yeah.
I know if we were only
I get
closer, because I'd join in. I'd be like, then we would be the Three Musketeers, I'm sure.
you're invited. Come out to California.
I'm gonna hitchhike. I'm coming.
Okay. Okay.
So
Wonderful.
I think it's wonderful that you now we can not only say that you're a performer, but you're an author. So you recently wrote this book called A Little Book of Mourning. So I just want to showcase it here so people can see the cover. Oh, look, twinsies.
Mhm.
And it's an audiobook as well. I the link is in the show notes for people who are watching this live. If you go in the show notes below. Um,
Excellent.
but why not, just for those who don't know the background into the creation of this book and why you made it,
Mhm.
what inspired you to, put down your feelings in words about what had happened to you and your family?
We had a tragedy, a family tragedy, as I'm sure, and I'm sad to say, many other families have. My brilliant, brilliant daughter, who was just so smart, just had received her master's degree in philosophy, was an author. She herself wrote 7 novels. She spoke Japanese. She was just a Renaissance woman, but she suffered from severe depression. And one fateful night, August 2021, August 24th, she couldn't take the depression any longer, and she sadly, tragically took her own life. So that was something I think I say in the book. I joined a club I never wanted to be part of.
Mhm.
And everybody says, oh, that's the worst thing that could ever happen to anybody. I mean, even if you see Hamilton and they see Hamilton and his wife and their son dies, and it's going through the unimaginable. So
Mhm.
to our family and to all who knew us and loved us, and to her enormous group of friends, and she was also a really well-known author in her genre, and she was quite a gamer. Anyway, everybody who had this solar plexus blow, this awful happening, we went into shock and we went into deep grief. And um, I didn't even know what to do. And again, I think you don't when this happens to you. I'm sure you've experienced the same kind of thing, maybe not this exact circumstance, but when grief hits you, uh, you lose your equilibrium, you lose your sense of normalcy. And
Mhm.
for me, I've always been a creative person. I've written lyrics, I've written poems, but I'd never written prose. And I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. And the only thing that kept me kind of together was I would wake up early in the morning or never go to sleep at night. And I would just start writing as if I was writing a journal, as if I were, I don't know, was Anne Frank up nights worried and writing a journal? Same kind of
Mhm.
thing. I just would write an essay, and then a day would come. Oh, it's National Daughters Day. Oh, I'll write something about that. And it
Mhm.
got to the place where it was one of the only things I could do was write. So for pretty much a couple of years, I would get up and every day write something. And then occasionally I'd write something, put it up on Facebook, or send it to friends. A lot of friends would call, oh, how are you? How are you doing? And about the 15th person, I couldn't really say how I was doing. So I would just send them an essay that I'd written.
Mhm.
And to a man, every person that I ever sent one of these essays to said, this isn't just about you, this is universal. You must
Mhm.
write a book. But again, somebody says to you, oh, you must write a book, but I don't write books. So
Yeah.
I said, okay,
You're like, where do I
okay,
start?
yeah, sure. And again, like Marty Sklar, the president of Imagineering, the great man, would say, you have a blank page. And I had a
Mhm.
blank page and a soul full of grief. And somehow I put my fingers to the keyboards and I started to write. I would, sometimes write in longhand. My daughter, who was really a great writer, it's almost like a little piece of her talent dropped into me and allowed me to express myself. And it took about 3.5 years for me to finish the book. And with the great help of my friend Camille Sharon Thien, she helped me organize it. A lot of the pictures in the book are pictures I've taken, some that Alex's husband took. My daughter's name is Alexandra Mitch Meyering. And some pictures, the only pictures I didn't take were, I think, one or two that Chris took, her husband, and then my My husband took pictures of myself and herself together, but most of the photography is mine. And I did take some quotes. There's a poem by Yeats in it, and there's other quotes. And it was quite a journey, even to get it through the copyright transition and to turn it into a
Hmm.
book. And again, it takes a village. So I had a lot of help proofreading things, and a lot of help, you know, sharing it. And it's really actually doing quite well. And I've had a lot of sales. And I just had a reading last Saturday at our local bookstore.
Hmm.
And kind of the charming or not so strange thing, because there's no mistakes in the universe. I went to our local bookstore. It's called the Open Bookstore. And it used to have a location closer to where I live near our mall. But the store had moved to another place called Canyon Country. But when my daughter was debuting her novels, she did all her book signings at the Open Bookstore. And so years later, I came to Diana, who was the manager, and I said, here I am. I've never written a book before, but I see there's this local fair. May I participate? And oh, by the way, my daughter did all her book signings at your store. And she said, I was at that location. I think I remember, which was touching to hear. And we just had this event, and I sold some of her books there at the book signing event as well.
That's wonderful.
Mm.
And you had sent some photos over. I'm not sure if all of these appear in the book, but here from the early days, you guys are just adorable. Can I just say, when you sent these over, it's so joyful to look back on these photos, because back in the day, we actually had to take them with a camera and then get them developed. And
You can
I
see
love
the
how
name. You can see like the time. Guess that was on June 6th, 1990, with her
yeah,
son.
that's what I loved. I was like, oh,
And I think
we've all been there.
I mentioned this picture of Alex by the swimming pool at my parents' house. So and I'm wearing a real live wristwatch as well. It looks like it might even
Nice.
be a Mickey Mouse. Oh.
And then was that her on her wedding day on the
That was
left?
her on her bridal shower, which we had done,
Bridal shower.
and it was all Hobbit themed. She loved all things Hobbit, so it was a Hobbit themed shower. We had a life size Legolas that somebody won in a raffle. It's true.
I love that. Oh, well, who doesn't love Lord of the Rings? I love that. That's
I
really
love it.
sweet.
And
That's
this
great.
other picture is in Tokyo, or I think it's in Tokyo, when I'd gone over to see her and her husband, who were living in Tokyo actually they were living in a place called Kamiyamaksa, but we all ended up at the Tokyo airport. And I'd just been in Japan for about 10 days, and she was going back to her school or her place where she was teaching children English in Japan, and I was leaving Japan to go back to California. So that's a very precious picture to me.
I love that.
Mm.
Now, as a lot of people who've been watching my show know, my mom passed away suddenly in December.
Mm.
So when you had messaged me and said the book's coming out, I said, well, not, I guess you couldn't say perfect timing, right? But
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't have read the book in the way that I did if what had happened to me didn't happen. So we had only spoken briefly, I remember, about Alex, back when this occurred. And I remember seeing, I think one of your posts on Facebook posts actually made it into the book, because I remember it so familiar, because it was so touching when I read it when you originally posted it.
Uh-huh.
And so there were a couple of little things that you mentioned in the book that I wanted to ask about, because everybody goes through their own stages of grief and how they handle things. So
Uh-huh.
one of the phrases you used was dimming her light in order to survive. Can you tell me a little bit about what that meant? Like what that sentence means?
Well, we were going on life as normal. She was about to go off to Santa Cruz to start her PhD program, and the house was full of all sorts of pictures of her little picture of, getting engaged at Disneyland, and just pictures of her all over the house. But the house changed, as you probably know with what you experienced with your mother. It changes in a second. And so things that just were, oh, that's just that picture of Alex here, and that every time I would pass a picture, I'd just burst into tears. So it was kind of like there were landmines all over my house. There were landmines all over my city. There were landmines every time I go to the grocery store. We've lived here. We moved into the house we're in when she was, 4 years old, and she grew up in this community, and she became well known in this community, and she had so many friends, and so I had to put some of the pictures away because I had to stop crying all the time. I had to continue living. So for me, it was almost like it, I'm of the Jewish faith, and when someone dies, for the first 10 days they sit shiva. If you're very religious, which I'm not particularly, they cover all the mirrors. They're in such grief they can't even look at themselves. So to me, I had to dim that light in order to um, keep going and keep breathing and take care of other things that I had to do. Doesn't mean I think of her any less, but I did take down some of the pictures because it was just so much.
And I knew exactly what you meant when you said that, and I feel like some people might take that in a different way if they don't realize, if they haven't been through the grief of somebody very close to them.
Uh-huh.
And it's hard. I think mine was basically just wanting to clean and not have things, lying
Uh-huh.
around the house, and just tidying things up finally, that my mom
Because
kind of
people
had
were
laying
coming, right?
around.
People were coming, right? Did you have an onslaught of people?
No. No,
Oh,
just the
oh.
clutter, because I'm such a clean freak, and I guess my way of coping, or not, not to say, kind of covering things up. It was just, let's, tidy things up. It should have been tidy back when she was still alive. So that was how I was dealing it. So when you just said about the pictures, and it's not in anything, against your loved one. It's just,
No.
yeah, you have to kind of take care of yourself in some way, and you don't know how to. There's no map or book on how to handle this, and everybody handles
Well,
it differently.
well, and again, maybe I'm no psychiatrist, but maybe deep in your heart, I'm sure my mother often said it, and I'm sure your mother did, and I know I said it often to my daughter. Please clean your room at least once a year, whether you need
Yeah.
it or not.
Yes.
And
Yes. Spring
and I
cleaning.
and no, and weirdly enough too, right when you're about to give birth, you get nesty. So they say, a couple of
Oh,
days. I knew that something was up right before I was giving birth to her because I started ironing my napkins, my cloth napkins. I thought, oh, okay, something's happening. So no, I understand that, and I do understand because again, when I think I've mentioned this in the book too, when I get depressed, I would go into the kitchen and I would wash literally every square of my kitchen floor, hands and knees, wash the floor.
yes.
By the end of the floor, I felt better. I felt
Hmm.
better because it was like I've done something positive to make myself feel better. And yes, I have a clean kitchen floor. These things didn't. Alex didn't really relate to that. She was not into the clean thing. So yeah, it's yeah. How do you cope? I don't know about you, but I couldn't eat for a really long time. Every
Hmm.
time I tried to eat, I'd get sick. Um, but that's one of the kindnesses. All the friends would, send beautiful food, and
Yes.
absentmindedly 4 days in, you say, "Oh, I do like C's candy. Why don't I eat 7 of those?" So
Yes.
I'd eat a lot of candy, but something, and then
Diet doesn't matter at all,
oh
because you get
no,
all this food,
no,
and yeah.
and may I say
I
three
it was
years
a lot of,
later, there you go.
yeah, you're like, oh my goodness, but it's so generous, because how do we, it's so interesting, how do you comfort somebody without not wanting to get too, get too close or anything like that? Not like too close, it's more of, not be, everybody needs their space, basically. So how do you do it? And a lot of people, the way of love is through food. And I we never had anything like that happen at the house before. It's just,
Yeah.
so I'm sure and it's just so sweet and kind of people. But you also mentioned something I wanted to also mention from the book, was that, little minuscule tasks, you're just happy that you get them done, which is true, right? You're just, as you said, clean the kitchen, and or water the flowers, that type of thing.
Yeah, Again, there's no one way to do it, and I think a lot of people don't know what to say, and a
Hmm.
lot of
Yes.
people, it was interesting because, um, and people do it differently. My husband did not want to talk to anybody. He wanted to
Hmm.
just go into the back room and disappear. And when people come to the house, he couldn't talk to anybody. We were also in the middle of a pandemic. So at the time that this
Yeah.
happened, and again, I'm a real chatterbox. So people would call, and I was able to talk to people a lot because that's my nature. I'm very extroverted. My husband very introverted. My son very introverted. So, and there's no one way to deal with this.
Hmm.
So so many people would just, I'd open my door and there'd be 6 plants sitting on the doorstep. I had another friend, I have a darling friend. She's just the nicest lady, Melissa, and she's a Mormon gal, and Mormons make this delicious thing called funeral potatoes. And I assume that when Mormons die, they start whipping up the funeral potatoes and they bring it to, it's one of the casseroles they bring. And so Melissa called me, what can I do? What can I do? And I think amid a great deal of tears, I said, would you please make me some funeral potatoes? And she did. And her husband, Tim, made me a big, huge plate of enchiladas, and they delivered them, masked, and here's your snack. And
Hmm.
then, yeah. So, and all of my friends were like that. That is the thing too. It's very true. In the midst of all this really deep drama and grief, you find love and you find
Hmm.
how much you mean to people. It's
Yep.
astonishing. It's astonishing.
And people will come out of the woodworks that you maybe haven't seen in years, and they
Absolutely.
show up, and that, I feel like sometimes that's even more telling, because you'll hear from some people and then you won't hear from others, and clearly things get spread very quickly on Facebook, so that people know about it mostly. So,
Well, and,
yeah.
and again, you also can't, I don't fault anybody for any way of dealing with it because it's very uncomfortable. And particularly in my
Oh,
case,
yes.
it's like, some people, there's some people that we see who take a look at us from far away and just literally turn and walk away. And I understand that. I get that because they don't know what to, oh, I'm so sorry it happened. Oh, I would run into people in the grocery store and say I'd stopped crying for an afternoon. Then I'd run into someone in
Hmm.
the grocery store and they'd start crying. So I found
Hmm.
myself in the role of comforter as opposed to being comforted. And sometimes that
Hmm.
was really hard. Sometimes that was like, how are you? I was good till you started crying. And yet
Hmm.
I'm not the only one who lost my daughter. We all did. And
Hmm.
how nice. There's Vinny showing you his best part.
Actually, I had a picture. I think, is this what Alex would draw of the dogs?
She
Since we're talking
loved
about
her
Vinny.
pugs. This is Vinny. You just saw his posterior if you were looking in the camera. And the caption behind the one where she's on top of the very big pug was, I wish you were, no, so I wish you were big. She wanted her pug to be so big so she could ride it. And then these two, she was an incredible fine artist, my daughter, and she did all these lovely caricatures, and she also did just beautiful art things. But the two pugs, Vinny is the lighter one, and Zool is the darker. And you can't really see, but if you close up on the pictures, one of them says Dionysus, and that's the wine spilling, and the other says Bacchus. So I think she did them. She was a student of philosophy, and she was very into mythology and Greek things. So in her fun little caricatures, she would add, you know, some literary stuff. But I
Hmm.
do, yeah. And this is really her whole life. She loved a glass of wine. She loved a
Hmm.
glass of wine. Yeah, that's.
So I wanted to mention the audiobook, because
Mm.
I was telling you off air that I digest my books now pretty much via the audiobook, and you have a special audiobook, and it's really lovely because you have some music and songs that are featured throughout too. So I wanted to mention that to those who might not, I still think you should get the book copy as well, like I have one.
Uh-huh.
But I would absolutely take a listen to the audiobook, because there's this particular song I think that you wrote and you also sing on the track about the bees, right?
Yes, Fly Little Bee. Yes. That was a song written with my wonderful. I have two main collaborators in my life, Marjorie Poe in Los Angeles and the great Steve Marzullo in New York. And together during this grieving process, we wrote these two songs, one called Fly Little Bee with Marjorie and the great oboe player Stephen Hammer and a cellist named Claire Rydell. And then in New York, my friend Steve, who I've been collaborating with for 40 years, he hired an incredible singer named Sally Wilford, who's literally like Barbara Cook. I mean, she's a great singer. So she
Yes.
sang the song, which was The Star That Shines on Me. And those are included in the audiobook on Audible. And also a song that my daughter wrote and sings in called Lost Among the Waves, which is, I think, quite beautiful.
It is. She has a beautiful voice. And I had asked you, I said, do you have any clips of you guys singing? So you sent me a clip. I can't remember what's the name of the song and what's it from? Because it sounded familiar. I
I
totally
think it's
forgot.
from the Hunger Games. It's a Taylor Swift song, and it's called "Safe and Sound." And that was one of our signature songs. We also sang "For Good," as many a mother and daughter used to sing. Um,
Yes.
so yeah, but
Well, why don't we take a little listen to both of you performing this Hunger Games song? It's really beautiful. So
"Safe and
here it
Sound" with
is.
Taylor Swift.
Just really beautiful.
Thank you.
Really lovely.
Interesting thing, right behind us while we're singing, and I think it's over here too, was a picture of my mother. So it was me and Alex and my mother behind. Wait, I'll get it. Hold on.
Oh, yes, please. I would love to see that. And I'm gonna zoom in on you so we can see it.
Okay, hold on.
There she comes.
Here's my mother. Here's Judy Lench when she was a beatnik. And this photograph was taken by Elliot Ervitt, who was, I guess, has become quite a famous photographer. They dated for a while. And that's my mother, Judy, and then Alexandra, who I think she used to call her Princess Alexandra. She was very grand, was my mother. And so in that song, I noticed, I just went, oh my gosh, not only was it Alex and myself singing, but it was also my mother was part of it.
Mhm. That's really low. I was so glad you sent that over.
Yeah.
As Steven's in the chat, he's one of our regular viewers. He says, I lost my mom 6 years ago. I felt similar feelings and it can be tough still, but we had to keep going. And that's true. It's a new way of living, right? Because you lose someone who's so a part of your life. And it's hard because you sometimes want to pick up the phone, call them or text them, and but you said something interesting, which is what I've been telling people. I tell people I feel like my mom's on vacation, and you
Mm-hmm.
say you still think that Alex is probably still living her life overseas, maybe doing something else, and she's doing just fine.
Having a cosmic cocktail. Now, let me ask you this. I just read an article. Do you still send emails to your mom or do you still text even though you know she's not there?
I don't. I prefer
Yeah.
just to sing a song that I know she would like and just sing it aloud. But
Mhm.
that's just me. Like the other day, I was singing some Barbara Streisand songs because that's what we would sing very loudly in the house to each other all the
As you
time.
should.
That's how I do it.
But no, I do. I have, I have,
What about? Oh
Christmas.
yeah, and you?
I send a Facebook. I don't necessarily text or write her. I certainly talk to her all the time,
Mhm.
but I do. I do on her, birthdays and Christmases. I put a quote and a picture on her Facebook page, which is still active. And philosophically, I guess she's up in the cosmos, enjoying time with my parents.
Mhm.
Metaphysically, she's probably all around us, enjoying everything. You get that feeling every once in a while that
Like
sometimes.
somebody's there.
Sure. Or do you ever have a dream? There are two kinds of dreams. Sometimes you dream and it's your subconscious, but do you ever have a dream that feels like you're getting a visit, that the
Yes.
person seems so real to you, you can hear
Mhm.
and because I'm a singer, and I know you are too, um, I hear I hear things. I hear things almost more than I see things, but I often hear her voice. I mention it in the book. There are catchphrases that she would say, and I often hear her if I'm having a tough day or a tough moment. I can sometimes hear her say, "That's okay. That's
Mhm.
okay. You're okay." And our dog Vinny, my beloved pug, is a real brat, and he's never been well trained. And try as you would, he embarrasses me when I take him on a walk. Um, and her phrase for him, she would often say, "He's not that good," and it's absolutely true. He's not that good, and so when I think of her, looking at him, he barks at the wrong people, and he's just not well behaved. So he's not that good. And then, of course, my friend Steve Marzullo and I wrote a song for his funeral because the day after Alex passed away, he had a tumor in his mouth, and we took him in. And the vet, kind of a young vet, looked at the tumor and she was like, "Oh, this dog will be gone in 3 months." And
Wow.
we were shell shocked because again we'd had this terrible loss. And then the vet was like, "Oh, that is the most insidious kind of tumor. This dog has 3 months to 18 months at the most. I won't even send you to a dog oncologist because that's it. This is the worst kind of." And Ralph, my husband, and I, we were like, what?" And again, the lady didn't have the bedside manner we might have want, but she said, "Oh,
Mhm.
your dog." And so we proceeded to feed Vinny filet mignon and lamb chops broiled just so. I mean, we just, this could be your last moment. And we kept watching him. "Oh my God, are you okay? Are you okay?"
Mm.
And he's still with us. He beat the odds. But at the time, again, dogs, animals, I don't know if you have pets, but um, dogs can sense when you're upset, and dogs can, obviously when my daughter passed, his best friend went, and
Mhm.
he was looking for her. He was looking in her room. And he
Oh.
then, because we were all crying, he wouldn't leave us. I mean, he was like glued to us. And the responsibility, the dog was trying to take care of us. And
Mhm.
another one of my dear friends who has also departed, who I think of often, sent me to a pet psychic for Vinny. And the pet psychic said to me every night, "Thank Vinny for taking care of you and let him know that he can have a rest." And I thought,
Mm.
that might not be bad for people too. Thank the
Mm.
people who are helping you. Because again, it's not just you that's lost, it's everyone. And they see you,
Mhm.
who they love, in agony, and they want to help you. So
Mhm.
maybe what we do is we say, "Thank you for helping me and keeping me strong. And now take a rest, take a nap if
Mhm.
you can. And if you can't, I say write a book.
Yeah. Write a book,
Or clean your
paint,
kitchen floor, or paint.
clean.
Dust, please dust.
Go
But
out and shop and get that Lysol and get ready.
get on the rubber gloves. No, and again, I wrote this book, and I'm sure you'll sing a song. I think you made that incredible song for your mother, that Barbara Streisand song
My
that you
little
did.
my the way
Yeah,
we were.
yeah. You have to do what they love, and but everybody copes, everybody does what they do. I hope in a way that my book will help somebody.
Mhm.
The reason I did it was that I really wanted, I wish this book had been around when it had happened to me. Because it's short, you
Mhm.
can read an essay at a time. You know, people will hand you these great big tomes and say, "Oh, read this, you'll feel better." And it's like, I can't put a sentence together. I'm not going to be able to read. And
Yeah.
the Audible is good that way because you can hear. And also, there's an e-version of the book. The printed version, the pictures are in black and white. The ebook, the pictures are in color, and the audio, you have the music. So,
Mhm.
and I think on Audible it's like $6.08. You know, so I don't know what the 8 cents goes for, but you know,
I think it's worth getting the book and the audiobook, and you read the audiobook, so it's you reading. So we get to hear you not only sing, but you get to read to us, which I always love when the author gets to read their own book. I think it's very special. Did you like that experience? Was it difficult? Because can I just say one thing? I don't know if you are a big fan of Sex in the City, but when they brought back the new series,
yes.
Carrie actually writes a book about her love passing, and it's very hard for her to even do the audiobook. And I was just curious because that popped up in my head. Was that something? Was it that difficult for you, or how
It
did you
it
work through
was
that?
it was difficult, but before I recorded the book, and my friend Camille Sharon was she did everything. She edited the book, and she was the audio engineer, and she seriously she published the book. She's just amazing. Um, Before that, I went over to another dear friend of mine's, Brad Land's house, and we read the book out loud, and we proofread it at the same time.
Hmm.
So as an actress, when you say read the play for the first time, sometimes you burst into tears. It doesn't take anything for me to really burst into tears, but because I'd read it out loud and because the actress part of me can remove myself a little bit, it was
Hmm.
hard to record. It was much harder to do that day when we were reading it without being recording. And a couple of times, I think you can even tell in the book, there are a couple of times when I almost cry. But I guess because of my training in my life, I've learned that if I do a lot of crying, then it doesn't allow the audience to. So I tried to just perform at that moment. Now,
Hmm.
listening to it, a flood of tears. Waking up every morning, I can have a good cry. But during
Hmm.
that moment, I had a responsibility. But yeah, I mean, put it this way, it wasn't easy. It wasn't fun.
Hmm.
But, and of course, you know, the blooper reel, but
Well, I don't know about you, but I don't like listening to my own voice. So I can only imagine if you're in there also editing your voice, you're like, oh gosh,
you have such a pretty
I do
voice.
that.
I will listen to it all
Thank
day
you.
long. No, actually, I don't mind hearing my own
Thank you.
voice. I'm used to it, but I'm old. You know, I've heard a lot of it.
Well, the one of the joys of doing my recent album is we finally got to collaborate and do a song because we had talked about it for so long, and I just loved listening to your takes without even the music. It was just hearing them because your voice is just so angelic and beautiful. So that was such a treat, and then just to hear you talk was you have such a wonderful phrasing of words, and I loved listening to it.
Oh,
I just listened all the way through. I started it all the
oh.
way through. Couldn't
Well,
stop.
let me ask you, of the essays, what were the ones that resonated with you? What were the moments that that maybe touched you in your own grief? Because that is interesting to me.
I think when you mentioned the energy to do anything, that
Mhm,
was really interesting because what my situation was that my mom passed away in the middle of me in dress rehearsal. I
mhm,
was about to open a show 2 days later, and I had been working on this show for 3 4 months. It was a musical my mom adored and loved, was so excited I was involved in it, and it had all these other attributes with it because her father passed away on Christmas Day. He loved the film, and
mhm,
it had to do with the army, which my grandfather was involved in. So there are all these crazy layers to it, and they had no understudy for me. So obviously I was going on. I was like, well, why am I going to sit? I can't sit at home. I don't want to sit at home. I'd rather be with people that I love and who love me.
mhm.
And so it was just that, and then it was just this. after everything was done, which was a whirlwind of a week, and then you're just kind of sitting at home for the next 2 weeks, just lying on the couch doing nothing. Basically, it's like you have no energy to do anything. You don't want to get up, you just want to sleep all day, and but you have to go through things and you're like, how do I find the energy? So when you were talking about that, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I totally get what you're saying. It's and again, the minuscule tasks that you can complete, and you feel so much better, slowly, when we got to that point, when I got to that point.
Mhm.
But gosh, it just takes a lot out of you. You don't want to do
Well,
anything. You don't want to eat, and yeah.
it's like you lose a part of your soul, don't you?
Hmm.
You lose
Yeah.
the most important part too. And again, you lost your mother, I lost my daughter. It's there's nothing worse. So if you did, okay, how about this one? Yes, you had to gear up for what you had to do, but then you had to lie down on the couch. And
Hmm.
the first person to say to you, Tammy, go lie down and take a nap would have been your mother.
Yeah, probably. That's why I sat on the couch. I never lay and sit on the couch, and she
Yeah,
always would sit on the couch, and I was like, I guess I'm going to sit on the couch and lie down and
absolutely.
sleep.
And lie down on your mother's lap and feel that love.
Yes.
And again,
And it felt good. It just
there
felt
there
good just to
there are
be like, you know what? The
yeah.
world doesn't matter. Just in here, it's time to rest.
Give yourself the permission to rest. Give yourself the permission not to be perfect. Um,
Hmm.
I'm sure, from tap dancing lessons as a child to singing to dancing to performing, and in the showbiz, oh, we just cut my arm off, I'll still go on. But
Yeah. Sometimes the show
sometimes you
can't
have,
always go on.
no, and sometimes you have
There's a
to
time to.
rest. You have to recognize. You have to give yourself that moment. And I will say now, it'll be 4 years in August, and there are days
Mm-hmm.
when I don't want to get up and I don't want to walk out the door still. There are
Mm-hmm.
days when I'm inert. I cannot do anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a productive person. You're a productive person. I said, she wouldn't want me to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Vinny has to
But
take.
then sometimes you. Yeah, but that's the other thing is like if you have an animal, unfortunately, you still have to get out of the house and walk them. But then again, there's like those moments where, you're like, you know what? I have been going at 110 miles an hour. As you said, you have to rest. But
Yeah.
then some days, I think that was so interesting when I was watching. Do you ever see the movie Inside Out from Pixar?
Yes. Yes.
And I think my favorite part about that film was like it said to have the happiness you do need to have the sadness. You can't just sadness doesn't disappear. It's there and you don't know when it's going to come and hit you.
Yeah.
And some days it just hits you harder than others and you have no idea why. It's just a wave. Um but that doesn't mean you shouldn't not bask in it, but you should at least live it and feel it because you
Absolutely.
can't just keep it
Absolutely.
down.
I also, something I say in the book, um, there are a couple of songs that my friend Camille, because she also sings with me, Camille, the great editor, sound editor, friend extraordinaire. Um, she knows, and it was St. Patrick's Day the other day, and we were singing for the old people at sunrise at Sterling Canyon, and she knows what the second verse of "Oh Danny Boy" does to me. And
Mm.
at one point, I think the very first time, maybe a year or two ago, I had never really sung the second verse. I'd only sung the first. And I said, "Oh, let's sing the second verse." And I'm singing it, and I'm just looking at the lyrics. And the second verse, I started to cry so hard. I had to literally, this was a different song that I mentioned in the book. Tears are pouring out of my eyes. I had to leave the room. I could not continue. And then since then, there was Vinny. Since then, Camille goes, be careful, no, Danny boy, be careful, don't sing that. Okay, Vinny, be good. Vinny's getting sprained. He spends his life.
It's actually so interesting you mentioned that because I just did a St. Patty's Day show
Uh-huh.
and at a senior living home, and one of the requests that my friend she brings me in to perform, and she mentioned it, and I was like, I don't think I'll be singing that this time
Oh,
around.
or let's give a shout out to "I'll Be Home for Christmas."
Oh
Yeah,
gosh.
that'll get you every time. But
Although
you know
it
what?
was, I sang "How Are Things in Guacamara," and
Yeah.
I so beautiful. And again, I had not heard that song in a long time because my mom and I used to watch Finian's Rainbow because we love that musical. But when
Mhm.
you read the words, it's so much different now, you know.
Everything is different now. But to
Hmm.
quote Alex, that's okay.
Hmm.
That's okay.
That's
Um,
okay. Well, that's life. And the good news is like the grief means there's just so much love there still.
yeah.
Right? So and you put all your love and heart into this, and it's just a beautiful book. Again, A Little Book of Mourning. And just a reminder, everybody who's been watching, we're holding them up. Maybe we should do our Kodak moment. Ready? We'll 1, 2, 3. We'll take a picture. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. And I want to encourage people. The link is in the show notes below. It will take you to Amazon where you can get the book, the physical book, the ebook, or the audiobook. And I suggest all three if you can, because I did.
It would be
And
lovely.
I'm
One day
just
I hope to make a bench for her or add to her beautiful garden in the outside. That's my
that
dream.
would be beautiful. What you could, and you could, I would say you would want to paint it, right?
Yeah,
Maybe paint it too.
maybe it's too big. No, just something stone that we can sit in.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you're interested in painting something else, but yeah, I think that would be a beautiful idea, just to put that out there and spend some time in the garden. I think I saw a picture you had shared about the garden itself, and
Yes, yes.
it's
Al's garden.
springtime, so it's starting to
It's
bloom.
blooming out there, and we planted a beautiful Palo Verde tree in her honor, and it blooms these tiny little yellow flowers. And this is very true. The on, pardon me, I'm going to spray Vinny. Vinny, on it's not that good. On Mother's Day, I went out, and again, I talked to her commemorative tree. Of course, I do. Sometimes I think the tree's like, okay, be quiet, mommy. But I go out and talk to the tree. And on Mother's Day, I looked up and there was one little yellow flower that bloomed for me on Mother's Day.
Oh,
So she's, there's
that's
signs.
not a sign. I don't know what is.
There are rainbows. She used to have these gorgeous crystals that she loved, and we hung them up out in our backyard. And every morning, rainbows come through my house. And if a
Mhm.
special color goes, even my husband and I will go, "Oh, look, there's Alex," because she comes through with a bright green reflection that comes through our house. So, they're with us. They're sending love.
Mhm. You're always with us, and I wanted to share two more photos you had sent over of Alex. By the way,
This,
I love that blue dress she has. It's gorgeous.
she wore that to her prom. Isn't that beautiful?
It's one I just love the color. It makes her hair pop, and then the necklace. I love that.
Such a beautiful
She
girl.
fabulous.
Yeah,
I
this
wish
was
I wish I got to meet her.
oh,
With the stories you tell about her
you would have
and
loved her.
how talented she was.
You would have loved her. This first picture is her at the Sausier in Cambria, one of her favorite restaurants. And doesn't she look like the author that she was there in that picture?
Yes.
And then
Yes,
this
with
one,
the red sweater and yes.
she's fantastic. And then here, Alex, every Academy Awards day, since the kids were little, I do a party where I dress entirely. I put on a face of makeup, and I watch the Academy Awards. I don't invite anybody. She got invited only because she was related to me, but it's my it's my high holy day, and I allowed her to come. But I make incredible snacks, and no one can talk to me. And I just watch the Academy Awards, and that was one night when she was admitted to the Academy Award night.
I love that.
And
Well,
people go,
hey,
"Oh, can I?"
we hold the Academy Awards at our house too. We provide like a few friends, but I'm glad somebody else celebrates them just like me.
Nobody can come. Nobody's allowed. But yeah, she knew how much that day meant to me, and I did let her. But again, they'd come for the snack. She wasn't that into the awards, but she did. We did dress up, and I do to this day. I put on a gown.
What can I ask? What your favorite favorite film was from this past year, from this past Academy Awards.
Wicked. Wicked. It was
Wow, look at you.
I'm a big Wicked fan. I thought it was fantastic. Just beautiful.
The opening was great. That was really wonderful to see them perform live. I love it when they can do the musical numbers. It's the best part.
I think you and I agree. All right. Woo, one more time. Do we get
Yes, one more time. A Little Book
Book
of
of
Mourning
Mourning? A Little Book of
by
Mourning.
Katherine Lench Meyering. I really appreciate you being on the show and coming back. And I really wish you the best with this book. I know you said you've already had a couple of moments where you could be an author in actual bookstores and people have purchased the book and you've gotten to read a little bit of it. Is there anything else coming up that maybe some of the listeners can attend? Or
Well, I think this interview, which I have advertised, and also I have a Facebook page, a Little Book of Mourning, if you're interested. Also, I guess from what I understand, the book is for sale on Lulu.com, which is quite a nice. That's where the book is being published. Also Amazon, also Barnes and Noble. You can find it on Barnes and Noble online, and
That's
Audible
really
for the
cool.
audiobook. So, you know, I honestly, sincerely hope that it will be sold so that people can get some good help from it. And just a shout out too. Again, one of the reasons also that I wrote this was that. Do you know the author David Sedaris? Do you know who he is?
No, I don't think I've heard of him before.
Absolutely brilliant, and he does a lot of essays. And I listened to lots of audiobooks, but when she passed away, I could not pay attention to anything but David Sedaris. And I listened to literally every book he wrote because he writes in an essay form. And so in a way, it was almost like his form became a form that I could relate to. And people were saying to me, oh, read this book, read that book. And I couldn't focus. I couldn't go to a group. I couldn't do anything but just be inside and grieve. But there was one book that I did maybe a year into it read that was incredible, called Unthinkable by Jamie Raskin, who is the congressman from Maryland. His son tragically committed suicide on New Year's Eve, and then on January 6th, he watched the dismantlement of the government. So he wrote his book about the grief of his son passing and January 6th. And that book, I don't know Jamie Raskin, but thank you, Jamie Raskin. It's a great book. It's called Unthinkable. And that one helped me, and hopefully A Little Book of Mourning will help someone else.
I think it will, Catherine, because, I think everybody handles their grief in a different way. And I think what you put together was just really beautiful again. And I really enjoyed the audiobook. So I appreciate you being on the show today. And I know we had a couple of individuals who've been watching us live and are now going to be tuning in to the show after we've been live. So thank you guys all for tuning in. Again, please check out Catherine's book. The link is in the description below. I don't have anything else to say except I'm so grateful that we're friends and that I got to read this book, and now you're officially not only a performer but an author. So I think that that's so cool that we get to add that to your resume now. Catherine,
Thank you,
an
Tammy. And thank you so much. And again, I am so sorry for your loss because I know what it feels like.
I appreciate it. And I'm sorry for your loss. And I think that I was really looking forward to this. A couple people had asked me, they're like, what's this going to be like? I said, no, I think it's something that a lot of people do, as you say, get uncomfortable. But I love having a conversation like this because we're all human, and it's nice to hear from somebody else who's going through something similar as you are. So
yeah,
I appreciate you, being so sweet and kind. So thank you for being a part of the show and doing this evening. So thank you.
And thank you, Tammy. That's okay.
I think we can end with that. So have a good evening, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Bye.